Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury.
Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon podcast. How are you? We hope you're doing very, very well. We are here ahead of the Madrid game, which we are, I can't say that phrase, but something a brick about. I literally can't think of anything else, but we are here to talk about something slightly different. We're here to talk Fabio Vieira. We just did an hour looking at Fabio Vieira on Y Scout. Really, really interesting. Really, I know we say this about every single Y Scout, but it was a really interesting one to go and look at him in Porto and see him sort of develop and what's changed about his game, which we'll obviously come to. If you want to check that out, you can do so from the link in the description. You can get that on a free trial on Patreon, or you can do as a YouTube member, but you also get access, if you do that, to loads of other Scouteds. We've done Lucien Agume and Sesko and Nico Williams and all the names that you want to go check out, so you can check those all out. And you get all the other stuff ad-free and rewatches and stuff and all that good stuff. But we're here to talk Vieira. Basically, to ask the question in the title, does he deserve another chance at Arsenal? I'm here with my boy, George. Interesting one. I think let's start with just Vieira's stats from this season in terms of what he's doing at Porto. He's done pretty well. He's had 34 appearances for Porto across all competitions, had 2,000 minutes, 21 appearances in the league, 9 in the Europa League, 2 in the Allianz Cup, and the Taça de Portugal, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing absolutely perfectly, don't comment. 9 goals and assists, mostly been played on the right, but also has drifted centrally. If you look at his heat map, which I'll put on the screen now, you can see he's generally favoured the right as he did at Arsenal, but also been playing centrally as well. I suppose, let's start with this. I think we both want Vieira to have another chance at Arsenal. Let's spoil the video now. I think we both want Vieira to have another chance at Arsenal. Could you give us a sort of a headline before we jump into the why of where you're at with Vieira right now? What you sort of feel he could do for this Arsenal team?
In a team that has at times questioned to play through the block, in a team that has at times struggled with mid-block, physical mid-block players, do we have players that can unlock a block with their passing and move people over the top through you with their passing and their ability in pockets? Do we have a consistency in transition, a power in transition to carry, release, and shoot kind of at the top of the box? And do we have somebody that has the breadth of passing range in terms of through balls from wide, targeted crosses, in terms of half space crosses that can drop on a sixpence, in terms of the uniqueness of their set pieces, in terms of the uniqueness of their hits in zone 14? Do we have somebody with consistency of ball striking action? All those things in one player? No. And that is Vieira as far as a technical player and what he's able to do. The questions are going to become, what has he learnt out of possession? Is he strong enough under contact? Is he strong enough to roll contact? And is he strong enough in the press to be a willing runner? Because I think that if you want Fabio Vieira to win duels in the press, you don't expect Martin Odegaard to do that. I don't know why you would expect Fabio Vieira to do that. I think as far as role, he needs to be the harrier, not the dueler in the press. And I think we've wondered whether or not he can even be the harrier in an Arsenal shirt. That's been the biggest question, because we know he can't be a dueler, but can he even be a harrier? Has been potentially why he hasn't, had minutes and had the opportunity to even have 2 90s in the league back to back. Not even had that chance.
I think watching it again, you get quite excited about the talent. Again, we'll come to translation questions and how he fits in Arsenal, etc. But just saying what we see at Porto and what we saw in the clips, you do see technically, like I said it, like I don't think we have someone who can manipulate a ball in the way that Fabio Vieira can at Arsenal. I really don't. I don't think we have, you said it there, someone who can drop a ball on a sixpence in that way. We're watching some of his crosses and like the way, if I'm hitting that ball, that is going out for a throw-in, and somehow he gets the height and the drop. It's really insane. I mean, how quickly he gets the ball out from his feet. And yeah, sort of the venom in his shot and someone who can take those shots in. We don't have that, or certainly maybe Waneri is closest, but as an 18-year-old, someone who's a prime age, it is closest. But as a prime age player, I don't think we necessarily have that. What we were looking for, I suppose, and what I went into the scouted really hoping to see was a development off the ball. I think that was the big thing. I think there's a lot of people, understandably. I think we see a profile. It's not necessarily players like we talk about Vitinha, or was it Norgard? Not Norgard, sorry. Damsgaard, sorry, at Brentford, players who can thrive in this league, who aren't necessarily built like Declan Rice, but they can thrive. And I'm looking to see an intensity. And I actually think, honestly, we saw it. I think we have seen a change. We looked at his attacking duels, we looked at his defensive duels, we looked at how quickly he responded off the ball. And I think we've seen a development. Again, we'll come to the translation question, but I saw a different Fabio Vieira, and we can see this in the numbers. So if you look at the pass-adjusted defensive duels, he's right up there in terms of compared to advanced midfielders. If you look at the defensive duels win, he's in a decent spot. If you look at his ball recoveries, you can see it up there. And that's obviously in addition to all the qualities that he has on the ball, as well as sort of in possession. This is a graph from Scott Willis comparing him to other advanced midfielders around Europe from Cannon Stats. So yeah, I think in terms of what I was hoping to see, I have seen a development. I think when we saw him at Arsenal, there was a kind of timidness to him. And I was never on board with this. Well, he's not a big guy, so he can't compete in the Premier League. As I said, we can see that. But there was a timidness to his response to losing the ball, to his maybe how he reacts, basically. And yeah, I mean, just talk us through like what you saw kind of develop, because I was really pleasantly surprised by what that is. And I think a lot of it, frankly, is down to confidence. I think going back into a team, you sort of mentioned it there, at Arsenal, he never played more than 2 90s in the league in a row. That never happened.
Yeah.
He did it in Europe in his first season, and then the second season he got under 600 minutes. It was, he had some injury limitations, but I think in terms of getting up that confidence, that rhythm, I think he's gained that back at Porto, and I'm seeing encouraging signs. Again, we'll come to translation in just a second, but just on what we're seeing, it's exciting.
Yeah, the big thing that I would encourage from people watching the Scouted is to count the amount of times that there was a turnover, the willingness for him to re-engage again. And of those 10 defensive duels, I don't know, I'd love for you to say, because I know this is something that we had differed on prior, but like, what would you say in terms of what you saw? Probably 7, 8 out of 10 duels were willingness to re-engage?
I think we were saying, it's not necessarily that he's winning more duels. It's that he's smarter. He's using his technique a little bit more, but he's also backing himself into players. He's ahead of the ball. He's getting himself out of tight spaces. And yeah, I'd say 7 or 8, certainly.
Yeah, and the mentality for me, at least of a switch, has been Fabio Vieira has always been probably one of the most technical players on the pitch, period. Since his U21 days, in which he was able to win with Porto and be the MVP of that tournament. By the way, that's when I first saw him. He has been one of the most technical players all his life, but he relied on that technique to get him out of trouble, always. And he felt that his technique would reign superior as far as dueling. But when you see the video, you see a much better mentality preparing the reception of the ball and getting himself between ball and man and really putting himself in between, which is actually allowing him to draw more fouls, which is something he can do. Like, if you're not the strongest person in the world, you get in ahead, you nip in ahead of the challenge to buy your team a foul. So ultimately the turnover is not a turnover running the other way. And I think that is an understandable frustration in which far too often in an Arsenal shirt, we saw him. It was weak under contact, but there was no willingness to get himself between man and ball. It was a turnover running back. There was no security because every time the ball went into Fabio Vieira, it went right back at us, essentially, was the major critique. I think that you're looking at a very different type of player right now. You're looking at a player who is more willing to understand that part of the game and add all of the pros that he's got it. And ultimately, mate, it results in him holding onto the ball longer, which to me, you give Fabio Vieira time on the ball, he will show you your talent. There's not even a question in my mind, and I feel that people may be disingenuous if you don't feel that technically and with time on the ball that this guy's got it. But the question has always been, does he get that time? Is he afforded that time in England? I'm seeing skills that allow him to have that time. Yeah,
I think disingenuous is a bit strong. I think people, understandably, because they didn't see that, haven't seen the rest of Fabio Vieira. So I do get people's, and there will be people watching this who just don't see it, and that's completely fair. And the question is, and what we can come to is the translation, because that is the big thing. Look, we were here in when did he sign 2022, looking at a lot of these qualities. You know, they're looking at the technical quality. Maybe we didn't see the off-ball stuff that we've seen now, and sort of developed in a bit of confidence and rhythm. But we saw a lot of this. What makes you? I suppose my position is, if he's given time, I think the phrase is ambivalent. I'm either way. I can't remember if that's the right phrase to use. I'm basically like, I see a lot. Yeah, exactly. I see a lot of encouragement. I see everything that he could be. I see a lot, like the qualities in transition as well. I think is really exciting to me. The ball striking, all those things. But we have to be fair. I look at Victor Gyökeres and I say, you're doing it in a league that ultimately the translation is a question. I suppose this is my position. I need to see Fabio Vieira given more than 530 minutes, I think it is, in over a course of a Premier League, an entire Arsenal campaign. I need to see that. Once I see that, I will then make my judgment. But I also, and even though I am encouraged, I reserve that right to be like, we've kind of been in this position before, maybe with less encouragement that we do have now, but we've been here before. He's had his time in England, and the very, very best players grab that opportunity with both arms. And maybe just, whether it's mentally or physically, whatever you go, technically, whatever, he hasn't got, because I don't believe that Kevin De Bruyne is the most talented player ever, gift from God. I think he combined the talent with the mentality and with the ability to go again, you know, mentally pick himself up, deal with the pressure, deal with the media. All those things have to come in. Those are my big questions about Fabio Vieira. But maybe where's your position in terms of the translation to the Premier League and to Arsenal?
I think for me, it's as simple as, do I believe that Mikel will give him a chance? And do we look at that number 10 position as potentially rotated and given the opportunity? And by the way, this isn't even a Vieira question. Like, I would even respond back, like, do you buy that Ethan can get that opportunity in the league next year, as far as getting 5 90s in a row? Whoever is your favorite player, you want to buy a Florian Wirtz, by the way, is he going to get that opportunity with a Zubamendi and a Declan Rice pivot? And maybe we can transition to the tactical board about how that looks, broadly speaking, you know, in terms of the system, as I'm continuing to talk a little bit here. But fundamentally, I do believe the question should be, do you feel that Mikel Arteta will be willing to rotate that position long term? And if you don't, then I think we have a bigger problem than Vieira versus Wirtz versus Ethan Waneri versus Eberechi Eze. But as I've pulled this up, can you see this on my screen, mate?
Yeah, all good. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I've put Zubamendi and Rice down in here, and we've got our kind of back four: Miles, Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White. We can put, Timber for people as well. It really doesn't matter. But fundamentally, what I'm looking at
Don't think I can't see Dalman on the bench.
Don't worry, some of the bench is like left over. But yes, as we look into what's going to happen for the new version of Arsenal, I don't know what the forwards are, so let's just keep it as is. This kind of 4-2-4, Vieira will be in that nominal 8 position, right? And I think what excites me is when Miles comes inside here and we see a little bit more of something like this, which can transition into a 3-4-3. This is the best use of Vieira in terms of having somebody, we've got running power on the side here with Miles. We've got running power in Declan Rice at right central midfield here. We've got somebody in Zubamendi that, by the way, will feed people. But we've got a Vieira who, for me, look, he can stand in on the pocket. He can have a beautiful whipped cross in back post. He can drift left, by the way, and play these one-touch passing to release Martinelli, who is wide, who can run on in here. He can play off of Kai Havertz for me because he's got the running power to, yes, explode beyond when Kai drops into these positions, and we're looking for somebody to really explode through the middle of the park. We have somebody that also threatens with his ball striking that way. So we've got some variety here. I have always felt the Vieira-Odegaard combination is not something I love. So if we were to have, a Declan Rice here, and maybe we had Miles back, and, if you wanted to maybe ask your Vieira to be a little bit more left central midfielder, and you wanted to have maybe Martin Odegaard come on to be in the pitch, and maybe we can put Miles back just in here and have this as our box midfield. Okay. This, I believe Vieira can do. It's a little lightweight for me as far as the press goes. And this is where I think I would struggle with Vieira, because what this does is it puts Vieira in the pivot as far as our pressing structure. If you're asking me, can Vieira play in midfield in these areas to win duels? No. But then I would also flip it, mate. Like, do I trust Martin Odegaard to do this? Not 100%. I really don't trust him to win duels here. I think you're looking at a very different type of demand. And this is where the conundrum comes in, because you're looking at things like this. Can Marino do this role? Yes, he can. He can win duels. He can do that kind of that job for you. Do you want your Zubamendi to do that job? Yes, he can do that job in terms of winning duels in that deeper area of the pitch. Vieira himself needs to be up here and have the flexibility to drop into midfield. He can't be the one for me winning duels out of possession. But in possession, we did talk about it. He is somebody that can pick up off the back line, drop in, and play these balls out to Martinelli, or even if Zubamendi wants to get a little bit forward at times and play in these balls and have that flexibility to do that, he can. But Fabio Vieira is the question, whether or not you believe between Martin Odegaard and Ethan Nwaneri or anybody that Mikel Arteta will find better rotation in the 10 position. That's going to be the question for me. And if you are really strong in that, then you keep him and you work him in, because he solves things that we don't have. Yeah.
I think I only come back on one thing. I do think there's more encouragement for me from what we saw in a couple of those clips of Vieira deeper. I don't dislike the kind of the Modric comparison of kind of someone dictating a game of that sort of profile and stature, the first time touches inside, sort of angling himself right and getting those balls forward early. I do like that. You kind of put my translation question onto Mikel, but I'm going to put you on the spot. If Mikel does rotate Martin Odegaard and Fabio Vieira, let's say gets your 590s, are you confident he translates?
I'll give you £100 that he translates. I'm incredibly confident that he can translate, but I just don't know whether or not the chance will be had. Yeah. Just like I'm very confident if I gave Ethan 590s, is he going to ask you different questions of that 10 position? Yep. He will. And so it's not that I think Fabio Vieira is some otherworldly talent that we don't have. I just think he's a profile that this squad lacks as far as passing in the block. And I think Ethan will do it in a very different way. He's more of a carrier for me, Ethan. He has the passing and he has a lot of tempo. If people remember my comparison, I think Ethan is a little bit more Modric in general, by the way. We haven't seen that in an Arsenal shirt. But mate, this is kind of the same thing. Like, people haven't seen the Ethan interior play because he's played as a right winger. But if you look at the academy, you're going to see a lot of the clips. People haven't seen the Vieira in possession because we haven't seen that in an Arsenal shirt. But when you start seeing it in other clips, you start to say, okay, this is a pattern in which we see the other part in other teams, in other environments. Now, the question is, can we afford to see that in a first team? Sure. Yeah. And I think the out of possession point, I will make this last one. When you have Martin Odegaard playing, he's the harrier in the press, and the left central midfielder is your dueler. Can Vieira ever ultimately be the dueler? No. I think that's going to be reserved to your Declan Rice, your Mikel Merino, your Kai Havertz. Those players can duel in them, so he won't be that. But if he replaces Martin Odegaard, can he harry? Yes. Do I think Ethan can grow to be a harrier? Yes. I don't think they'll ever be dual winners. Miles will be a dual winner in those high zones, right? So it's about knowing where in the press and what roles you want to supplement. But can we have two harriers high up the pitch? I think that's too light in terms of how we want to press. And so that's going to be the debate, really.
And that's the big question. And I think essentially it's essentially for Vieira to be given the crack of the whip that we think he should be given, or to certainly see the talent, it requires Martin Odegaard to come out of this team. Basically, I think is maybe a fair way of surmising it. I think, look, let's say that happened. I put you on the spot, so I have to be fair. I still have my reservations, even though I'm way more confident to be honest than even going into that scouted, because the things I was looking for came out, and I was really pleased. So I'd encourage everyone to go look. So I'm more confident than I was when I went in. But a lot of what we're talking about is tactical and technical stuff, and that's part of the game, but it's not the whole game. And my worry is that Vieira doesn't necessarily have the personality in and of himself to come to England, to impose himself, to basically believe that he can be the primary creator for Arsenal. I don't know the guy, but from what I've seen and when I see the players who do translate to England and the players who do come out, and think about what we're asking him to do. If we believe that Vieira let's say Vieira gets 5 starts and we see the impact and we see a development, we're then saying, okay, you're going to be in our team and you're going to go on to hopefully win us Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. That is a massive ask. In the same way that what we're asking of a number 9, a Gyökeres, whatever it might be, we have to remind ourselves what we're asking that player to do. Those tactically and technically, I think you can make decent arguments for him. That's where I have my big question. So to answer the question, I would say I'm 50% confident in the same situation.
Yeah, I think the big thing too is if you want to move on from a Fabio Vieira, no problem. You're looking for a £75 million replacement. You want your Xavi Simons, your Berisha Eze, all the names that people, Morgan Gibbs-White, all the names that people want to replace. As far as by the way, I would say all those players, they're also not perfect in terms of their out of possession work. They're also not perfect in terms of what you're asking. Like if you want Fabio Vieira to maintain his technique, but also be a stud out of possession, that's a £75 million+ player. Like we're not talking about something small as far as a replacement here. And I think my biggest issue has been in the context of what we need this season. I want a year. I'm very confident in what I've seen scouting wise as far as the translation, but this is theory. I want the chance. And to me, I will go as far as saying this is the last chance. Like I'm not looking to keep Vieira for 2 to 3 years. This to me is last chance saloon. It's like, okay, I will give you the 590s. You don't take it. You're going to be sold and I'm going to be looking to replace you in 2026. But I think it's a year early. It is a year early for us to make that decision in the context of what we need to finish this summer. And it's a year early to me for us not to learn what we want. In the same way that I'm looking at Martin Odegaard in the last couple months and there have been questions, in the same way I look at Ethan Nwaneri and say, wow, there's some really great things that you've shown me, but are you able to be a little bit more of a dominant player in the interior zones in adult football? Can you grow to take more responsibility there? Can you grow to stay wide when you need it? Or are you going to be drawn to the ball? Yes, I believe you'll learn all these things. But those chances and that chance to allow that to happen is something that I need to see a little bit more maybe flexibility with, broadly speaking. Mm-hmm. And that's in the context of Zubamendi coming, with Declan Rice there, with Miles Lewis-Skelly, who we found and is basically an undroppable player. Like there's a lot of players in this team that are very, very good. And this idea of starters versus rotation versus pillars is going to be a debate that I think is going to rage well into the season. I only think we have 3 pillars. I think we have maybe 5 or 6 starters that I'm like, they must start. And then outside of that, I'm pretty open.
Okay. Final question at the very end. So all the people who aren't listening have gone. Mikhail comes to you, says, George, I'm going to take your advice. You get a yes or a no. Do I prioritize this season Fabio Vieira over Martin Odegaard?
$2025, like the upcoming season?
25-26. And, if he's not performing, you take him out of the team, but you prioritize.
Is he performing? Well, if he's performing, yes, I prioritize him. If he's performing, yes. If he's not performing, then no. It's a performance question. Here, let me just be very simple. I'll come out and say it. This team is moving towards more of a traditional 10. Fabio Vieira is more of a traditional 10. Where do you see Martin Odegaard as far as the influence in the team with a Martin Zubamendi and with a Declan Rice? That is going to be a question. Now, if Martin Odegaard performs like he did, by the way, at Real Sociedad, which he could have done with Alexander Isak, and if he does perform, Martin Odegaard is in this team, and there's no questions about it. It's a performance question. So if you give me 590s, and by the way, you can replace Vieira with Ethan, I think the number 10 position is a rotated position next season. It is not the pillar signing that we have assumed it could be. That's where I think I stand on it. Mm-hmm. And then whoever performs takes the shirt.
I hear that. Well, it's going to be very, very interesting. And I suspect we will see Vieira in preseason. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him again in an Arsenal shirt and seeing him given, a slot in this team. And I think he deserves it. I think he really does deserve it. And I think if you go and check out those clips, which again, you could do for free from the link in the description or in the pinned comment. I think you'll see a lot of encouraging signs. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.